A couple of months ago, a guy named Zach posted this how-to video on this website that's shown below. Also include a link in the description of this video. And the how-to guide shows you how to stuff a Raspberry Pi Zero into the shell of an NES cartridge. So all you need is an empty an old NES cartridge, and you open it up, gut it, and he shows you step by step on this website how to open it up and build your Raspberry Pi, all the parts you need to order for it. He has links to Amazon.com, which I used all of these, just about all of these links to order the parts that I needed. And the neat thing about this project is it doesn't require any soldering of any wires of any sort. And he also includes a YouTube video, which I will include a link to in my description, to show you how to do this. And throughout this video, I am referencing the guide. I'm calling his website the how-to guide, the guide. So I thought this would be a fun project. It's inexpensive, and this video documents my journey following Zach's guide, Zach's how-to guide. So I hope you enjoy this, and here it comes. These are all the various parts that I had to order using Zach's guide, which included Amazon links and links to purchase all of the parts. That's the Raspberry Pi Zero. Look how tiny it is. It's only $5. All of these parts, that's the USB cables. That's the micro SD card. You don't need a 32 gig probably for what you're going to be needing this for. That's the power adapter. And you need a little micro or a mini HDMI to HDMI adapter, and these are all the little parts, little conversions that you needed. And that's the USB hub, which has 3 ports. So it takes one USB and pumps it up to 3, and that's needed so you can plug in multiple controllers. And then I forgot to include, these are the controllers. They were $5 or $6 a piece, and they shipped from, I believe they shipped from either Japan or China, and they took a while to get to me. But they weren't in that previous segment, but I definitely needed those to control this Raspberry Pi. So one of the things you're going to need for this project is the Raspberry Pi image. And the guide has a hyperlink on where to download it. And I've already downloaded it, so I'm kind of skipping over some of those steps here. And you use a utility called Win32 Disk Image in order to format that micro SD card that you need for this project. Once you write the information to the SD card, you have RetroPie installed on it, and right here it's sped up. It takes a couple of minutes to install the ROM onto the micro SD card, but once it's there, all you have to do is load the ROMs. And here is an image of the Raspberry Pi all hooked up and the controller plugged in. So this is the Raspberry Pi Zero chip that I purchased for $5. And I have a mini SD card plugged into it. It's a 32 gig. I know it's overkill. And I have this mini HDMI to HDMI cable plugged in, which extends up to the television. And then the white cable right here is a micro USB adapter to USB. And then that goes to the little 3-port USB hub. And then that black cable right here is the power adapter, and it plugs into the power strip I have right there. And then in the USB hub, I plugged in my flash drive, which I'm going to load the ROMs from. on the far left, and then in the middle port I plugged in a USB keyboard so I can type those commands to load the ROMs. And then on the far right I have my USB gamepad that I purchased on Amazon. And that's how I've been able to control the games. And so this is the setup before trying to stuff it into the NES cartridge. So this right here is showing turning on the Raspberry Pi and loading it for the very first time. The steps that it goes through. And what I need to do at this point, I already have a USB flash drive plugged in, which has a couple of ROMs on there, and all I want to do is copy those ROMs onto the micro SD card that resides on the Raspberry Pi Zero. And in order to do that, once it's booted up, you press F4 on the keyboard, and that brings you down to a command prompt, a command shell. And then with the command shell, you can start entering commands. And I'll try to zoom in the video so you can see the commands as I type them. So here F4 has been pressed. I'm doing a DF command, which just shows me all the drives mounted. And I can see that my media/USB 0 is my USB stick, so it's mounted. I'm changing directories to the RetroPie folder, and then from there I'm changing directories to the ROMs folder. Then I'm changing directories to the NES folder. Once I'm in the NES folder, I'm doing a list command to see the contents of the USB drive, and then I'm doing a copy command to copy from the USB drive the Super Mario game, Super Mario 3, and into the current directory. And then I do another list command. Now it's on the Raspberry Pi. Now I'm going to switch directories to the Atari 2600 folder, and then I'm also going to copy from the USB drive that's plugged into the 3-port hub, and I'm going to copy the Asteroids game that I have loaded there. And you see I'm struggling here with the syntax, but it was just a typo. Okay, so now I have the 2 ROMs loaded. Now I have to configure the gamepad, and it automatically detected it right away. I didn't have to do anything. And so all you have to do is press all the buttons that it asks you to press, and then for all the extra ones you just have to skip them. And I'm sort of sped up that part of the video. You just kind of skip the ones that you're not defining. Once you have the little controller all set up, you can actually play the games. And I don't really show that. I'm kind of saving that for the end. I show a little bit that I just get into the games. Just to show that they're loading before I actually start trying to stuff this into an NES shell. Part of the project, I'm going to use the Fester's Quest NES cartridge and use the handy dandy tool to open. Third screw's still in there. Okay. For sure, the guide said we have to remove that on both of these pieces. So that's the next thing I'm going to start working on. He says he used a pair of pliers He used a razor and a pair of pliers to take those lines out. Let's see, where was that? Oh, right here. Okay. All right. Now off to the next part of the guide. The USB hub is housed in a plastic casing. We don't need that, so it takes up a lot of space. Using a flathead screwdriver or your fingernails, pry it open and toss the case. So you end up with this. And we also have to take the LED out. It has a pretty tall LED that gets in the way when you're trying to close the cartridge. Use a pair of pliers to carefully remove this LED. You don't need it, and it isn't visible with the case shut anyway. There we go. Ha ha. Okay, so this is the side of the shell that he's using in on the guide, and he says it fits perfectly snug with the back slot right there. So you could glue it right there, glue it on the sides, glue it on the bottom. There's not a whole lot to stick on the bottom, it's just those bottom solder points could be glued. There's not a lot to stick it to on the bottom, so I think this is going to be a delicate operation here. Okay, so I've pulled out just some super glue I think I purchased probably at the 99-cent store. And I'm hoping it's going to be good enough. I have some Gorilla Glue, but I don't want to use it because it expands. So I'm going to hit each one of these points right here with a little bit of the glue, just a little bit. Shoot, I didn't pull off the LED. Dang it. See if I can do that without ruining this. Let that dry. You gotta be careful with the application of the glue because you can ruin your device. I've done it before, so I know. I think I'll have to remove that. Okay. Piece of cake. Okay, so this is the USB. The USB hub plugs into one of the USB ports to the USB. And then you have to do some creative cabling. So I got this tape right here. It's a double stick. And I think it'll be just, even though it's a little wider than I wanted, I think it'll be fine. So I'm just going to cut a slice of this off. Throw it on the back of this. And I want this. That's actually really, really cool. Has them right where I got them. This one's centered. For this, I'm going to use the Gorilla Glue. There we go, got some. I want that to hold, so I am going to clamp it down. While I glue this other one down. So my finger there. Carefully put it down right in the middle of those two somewhere. I want this one in the middle. I'm going to use the crazy glue. It's a little easier to get down there. Whoa, a little bit too liberal. Okay. I got way too much glue in there. And that could interfere. Oh, that's not the Pi, that's the USB hub. I don't know. We'll see. I'm just going to take my chances. Oh, that's crooked. Makes it crooked. There. And then I'm going to let it sit like this so the glue runs back down. We'll have to set it against the wall or something. Okay, so now this has been drying for a couple of hours. It may not be 100% dry, but it's not moving anymore. It was sliding. Now I just have to finagle the wires the way they're supposed to go. Get the wires in place. Let me look at the diagram. Diagram shows this like straighter, more like a straighter thing, but let's try it like that. See if I can get anywhere with that. There. Okay, let me pop it out. So the final shot is like this. And this time I'm going to leave it alone if I close it. There. So there it is. Now all that remains is to test it out. So here it is, all hooked up. I got the HDMI plugged in on the far right. I got the power there in the middle. I got my controller right there. I got my controller plugged in. And And I got my USB keyboard just in case. I have that plugged in. And all I have to do now is power on. The only thing plugged in is this RetroPie, and I just have to power it on. You can see it's all hooked up right there. The HDMI right into the side of the TV. And now I have one Atari 2600 and one NES loaded. So let's go into the Nintendo folder. And it's the only ROM I have loaded, Super Mario Brothers. Seems to always give that little message there, but we'll hit start. Anyway, oh, right there. Both select and start simultaneously. Takes you back into the RetroPie menu. From here you can navigate to the 2600 folder, which I only loaded one ROM, and it's Asteroids. And the same controller seems to work fine with the Atari 2600. It's hard to play one-handed, but... Anyway, this has been a fun project. It's been really a simple fun project to work on. No soldering was required. I plan on doing 2 of these. I bought enough parts to do 2. The RetroPie itself is only $5, the Pi Zero. And the only thing that starts adding up are these little cables that you need to purchase. So it can be done, the guide says for about $30. And to me it was fun, and I'm going to load it up with some more ROMs and go from there and start playing it. But I intend to use it, or I intend to give one away to a lucky kid at Christmas. Most of you are probably aware that Nintendo is coming out with the NES Classic Edition on November 11th, and it's going to be $59.99, and right now it's sold out online. And that got me to thinking that even with this cartridge project that we were just looking at, you need some sort of a carrying case, probably, if you're really going to use this thing, to carry all your controllers and the power adapter and maybe even your HDMI cable. And the NES Classic Edition, they're also coming out with a carrying case. I don't know if it would be suitable for this particular project, but I was just thinking something like this would be nice to have, maybe even something smaller than this for that purpose. One other thing I wanted to talk about was, where do you get the ROMs for your NES cartridge that you've just built? And I'm going to cover a couple of ways that you can get the ROMs. For Atari 2600, there's an Atarimania website, and they have ROM collection that you can download, and it has thousands of games in there. So so that's for the Atari, and probably won't be able to play all of those on this little cartridge. You can have fun trying. And then another website I wanted to point out was Robohara's website, A Guide to Many NES Alternatives. And on this website, he points out how easy it is to find the NES ROMs. And so he has a link there to the NES ROMs. And it's actually quite a nice article, and Robohara covers a lot of Commodore 64 stuff. It has a couple of books and several podcasts. Those were the ideas and the final thoughts that I was having for this project, and thanks for watching.